My camera's.
You found your way to the Winning Tactics podcast with host Adam Sinkus. Adam discusses winning tactics with small business owners and entrepreneurs, uncovering processes and introducing the tools and solutions for enhancing the bottom line. Thanks again for finding your way to the Winning Tactics podcast, and now your host, Adam Sinkus.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Thursday. We got Matthew Perkins with us. Bear with me one moment while we get everybody pulled up on LinkedIn so I can see your comments.
Woo-hoo! Comments are important. We like those things.
We like those things. So if you have questions through our discussion today, please drop them in the comments. We will do our best to answer them all for you. Looks like we already got a couple people on. That excites me.
Nice.
So
I'm actually still bringing it up myself. So hello, everybody.
So welcome to the Winning Tactics podcast. We are coming to you live from the Millennium Falcon. No, not really. I just got my green screen set up. Super excited about that. So I can look all professional and not have my children walking behind me every time I set up live call or live meeting. So wanted to formally welcome Matthew Perkins to the show. Matthew is the brainchild and founder behind Infinity Streamers, which is going to be an absolutely awesome platform. You will see the Winning Tactics podcast on there. So Matthew, welcome to the show. So glad to have you. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and why we care.
Phenomenal, Adam. I love that intro. Brainchild isn't what I've heard recently, so that was pretty awesome. What I do traditionally is I'm a social engineer in virtual and remote networks. I have a history of building large virtual groups. My two biggest were both over 3,000. And building that kind of culture and cohesion among groups that large in a virtual environment takes a lot of different things that people aren't really used to. And they're starting to figure out all the nuances that go into it right now as all these companies and corporations try to pivot their employees into a virtual network. Now, what we're doing with Infinity Streamers is I'm leveraging those skills. I've done that for about 20 years now. And so I've leveraged those skills and just sort of my networking skills and my social engineering skills to begin to build an entire network of streamers to have a platform we're branding as the edutainment network. And our goal is, whether it's a personal crisis or a global crisis, we got your back. And so what I mean by that is we're not beholden to ad dollars. Every one of our streamers has been vetted for a people and value first mentality. You will never hit a paywall to access their knowledge. Obviously, they have skills and professions. You can hire them out for what they're professional on. But in order to access their knowledge on how they do what they do, there will never be a paywall for that. You will never hit an ad on our website, which launches on May 1st. So we're really excited about that soft launch.
Awesome. Well, so glad to have you on the show. And you are 100% right. You know, as we've gone through this COVID thing, and I try not to dwell on this because I feel like we've killed it. You know, yeah. It's like a bad car commercial. We just keep reliving it over and over and over and over again. And so I try not to dwell on that. But the reality is that we have actually forced the hand for a lot of companies to go into this distributed workforce and really building that culture through digital means, right? And actually, right after I get off of this live, I'm actually teaching a workshop on that as well. But you know, it is really an important topic, and I think it's only going to become more important because this is the reality in my mind that companies needed to realize that work at home does actually work. So
exactly. At the end of the day, if you handle it correctly, if you put trust into your employees and you build the proper culture, give them the tools they need, you end up getting a lot more out of your employees, and they end up putting in a lot less time. So they're much happier, much more fulfilled, and much more willing to dig deep and go that extra mile when it is needed to complete a project and put that extra effort in.
Yeah, no, it just takes I think for leaders in business, it takes a big shift in mindset. And so I want to kind of start diving down those paths in your mind as we shift to this digital landscape that we're kind of moving towards. What are some of those things that are important to maintain your culture within your organization?
Absolutely. Well, the very first thing as far as culture goes in your organization is, as the head of that company and that organization, you really need to take a strong line on what you want your culture to be. You need to define that. It needs to align with who you are. You know, if you're a certain way and you want your culture to be something completely different, then you need to almost not be involved with it, because the culture you're maintaining really needs to be taken to heart and be displayed in every action, every word, every thought of the spearhead of your culture. Now, especially for the head of that organization, your core group needs to have that instilled in them, because the culture isn't going, obviously to come from them or resonate from them. You create that culture that you want. Take a very hard line with it, with your core group of upper echelon management. And that way they know what to be spreading to their core groups, and so on, all the way down to your frontline employees.
Yeah.
So you really have to look at that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That top, it's got to start at the top. When I work with organizations on culture, we start with the message at the top. I usually define somebody immediately as the person that is going to portray that message. It doesn't have to be the CEO. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but a single point of contact, because I always liken it to the game of like telephone, right?
That's it exactly. That's it exactly, because it's going to get watered down a little bit more and a little bit more. And if you don't have that consistency starting at the top, by the time you get to your front end, well, before you get to your frontline employees, it's just going to be watered down to nothing. And it's not going to look anything like what you wanted to start with. And what I mean by consistency, like, these are all just really kind of whitewashed words. But by consistency, I mean you have to be willing to call out your talent when they're not aligning with your culture, regardless of how valuable that particular piece of talent is to you. At the end of the day, you can have a rock star person in your organization or in the group that you're building. It just really shines in every project they do. But if they're not aligning with that culture that you're trying to build, they end up driving away more talent that you want, that you're looking for, that will align with your culture and help build that kind of moral ground that your group is looking for. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be willing to take a hard line with them. Now, does that mean remove them from the piece of the puzzle, remove them from the puzzle every time someone doesn't align with your culture? Absolutely not. Because they have to learn that culture. They didn't build it. They don't know exactly what you're looking for. And that's where that consistency comes in, is it allows people to look at that and learn and begin, okay, we don't speak like this. We don't talk about that. We treat our customers this way. This is the image we're looking to portray. And so it comes with that consistency and that willingness, like, oh, they're very serious about this culture, because this dude over here brought in 200,000 in revenue last week. I only brought in 50,000 in revenue last week. But when he stepped out of line from that culture, they were on top of it still. So it puts that in your team's mind, that culture is important to you. And it doesn't, like, nobody's above that culture. It's kind of like they say, nobody's above the law. And we look at certain situations and go, well, this person's clearly been held outside of the law because they've reached this certain level. And so we have a disrespect for that, and we don't feel that the country is aligned with that moral value of nobody's above the law. And so you want to avoid that kind of outlook and mindset from your employees by maintaining that consistency regardless of that talent. Like at the end of the day, a single talent can be responsible for 20 or 30% of your revenue for that quarter. And if they're not aligning and refuse to align with your company culture, it's going to be better for you in the long run to remove that piece from your puzzle.
Yeah. No, I think that's really key. We're going to pause for just a minute, and then I got a follow-up question to that. I just want to say hello to the audience. Hello, I'm going to butcher this, but Sharid, and we got Richard on, and looks like Alex is on. Alex Garrett, welcome, guys. Thank you for joining the show. We appreciate it. And again, if you guys have any questions about what we're talking about, drop them in the comments. We'd be more than happy to answer those for you. So I want to shift back to, you were talking about those, so to speak, bad apples, right? Because it happens. We hire people on the, basically on a hope and a prayer that the culture and the person that they bring to the interview is the exact same person that they're going to bring to the job. And I would say for the most part, that is a true case, right? But it doesn't always happen. And we get those bad apples on our team. And so my experience is one person can totally destroy a team. So what are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely believe that's 100% correct. And that's another thing that we were getting on with that consistency. It helps them. They know the image they portrayed to get in the door. And so if they're seeing that hard line held after they're in the door, they're more likely to maintain that image, whether it aligns with them actually or not, in order to continue earning their right to be where they're at. So just showing that consistency. And as you said, one bad apple spoils the bunch is exactly the point we were getting at, where sometimes you need to remove that piece from the puzzle because they might be top talent. They might be bringing in more revenue than any of their peers. But at the end of the day, they're causing their peers to be in that wrong mindset. They're changing the culture you're trying to build. And they're going to cost you revenue in the long run and cost your employees some happiness, to be honest.
Yeah. No, and it's interesting you call that out, right? Because happiness, I think I know for a fact, I've read plenty of articles. There's plenty of data out there that supports this, that says employees that are happy produce better, right? And so, so though you may have somebody that is I was talking to a sales manager probably about a month ago now, and he was talking about he had one salesperson on his team that was really bringing in about 40% of their total revenues himself, right? Single sales guy bringing in 40% of the revenues of the whole team. And so that's awesome. But I asked him why everybody else wasn't bringing in the same take. And he goes, well, this guy just pounces all over everything that's going on the team. I said, so you're not giving anybody else a chance because he's just too far forward with the team, doesn't align with what the rest of the team is doing. And as we started down that path, he realized that the challenge there was that guy was actually hampering the performance of the rest of the team.
Exactly. Well, it hinders the growth of the rest of the team too. I would much rather have a team of half decent or even mediocre talent that I can build cohesion between, I can teach them to be better and help them all upgrade together. And then, so like you said, why isn't the rest of the team performing anywhere near that level? Why is one person bringing in 40%? Well, because he's suppressing the other talent that you have around. And whether it's intentional, which usually when you're hitting that levels, it is kind of intentional. They can make sure that they have that extra commission and that extra cut. And so they're hindering the growth of the rest of your team. And that's where we're getting at, that even though this employee in this example is bringing in 40% of the revenue, they're costing you so much more because they're you're paying an entire team to level up and do your sales, and they're preventing that from happening.
Yep. You can hire culture and fix talent, but you cannot hire talent and fix culture. It doesn't work that way. I don't care what anybody tells you. Yep.
It doesn't work that way. And it doesn't make them, and I know we kind of called it bad apples. We've been calling it a bad apple, but that's not even necessarily true. They don't have to be like this opposite of whatever morals you're trying to build for your team. They may just not align with the culture you're building. There may not be cohesion in that team, and it doesn't necessarily make them bad for every team they'll ever be in, but they are not a fit for the culture and the team that you're building. And that's okay. You can have that split and have that conversation and still maintain a future relationship with that talent. Maybe their mindset changes as they get older. Maybe you have another project with a different culture atmosphere that you're trying to build, and they're a good fit for that. So it's okay to have that. But at the end of the day, if they're just not aligning, again, they don't necessarily have to be a bad apple, but if they're not aligning with your culture, then you're going to need to remove them.
Yep. So, I think it's interesting because I've talked about this with my business partner, Josh, a little bit about transactional versus consultative sales, right? And so when I was talking to this guy about his team, it really came down to the guy that was producing 40%. He was very transactional in his sales approach, right? The rest of the team was very consultative. So I think every business should have, in my mind, should have a transactional sales process and a consultative sales process. Your transactional sales process is your lower dollar, entry level items in whatever your offering is. Your consultative is your high dollar. It's your big revenue. It's your big profit margin items. And I think there's values on both sides, right? So, it's finding, especially in sales, is finding which people fit into which bucket and putting them in the place. So like you said, culture they could have the right culture at the core, but they could just not be the right fit for that team. And so, it's important to evaluate all of those pieces of your business when you start making those decisions, I think. So.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that. And I will say, to the point, like you brought up a good point, someone who aligns with your culture, but isn't necessarily aligning with the team or what's going on in the position you have them. Someone that really aligns with the culture that you're looking to build is very rare. And it's very difficult to kind of instill that, as you said, in people. So if you have someone that super aligns with your culture, but they're not shining in the position that you have them in, then there's a couple things you can do and should do at that point to maintain that person in your team. Because again, they're going to help your culture spread out. Like, it works the same way as the bad apple will spread that anti-culture. If they're not aligned, that person will help spread your culture. So a couple of things you want to do is you want to take a look at them. First, has their work performance changed from what it was? And maybe talk to them about what's going on in their personal life, because that's real big for culture too. It is letting people know that you actually care what's going on. So if there's been a significant shift in their production or their attitude, you can kind of dig into that and let them know, like, oh, I have an open door policy, but make that real for them so they know they can speak to these things that are going on in their life. The second thing you can do is take a look at the position they're in and take a look at their talents and see if maybe they're just not in the right department, or maybe they're not in the right position for that department, and kind of look around and find something that might be a better fit. And then the third thing you can do to kind of help that person fit more into the team or remain with your company and spread your culture around is to provide them with some mentorship and a mentor and some tools to get better. Maybe they're super excited about the position they're in. It's where they want to be in. They're aligned with the culture, but they're not doing very well at it. It goes right directly back to your point. You can teach talent, but you cannot teach the culture. So if he has the culture, go ahead and teach that talent. Give them a mentor, give them some tools, find somebody that they align with as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. You talk about alignment and tools to help them get there. Two of the big things that I always talk about with people is proper goal setting, and how you're empowering people to actually chase their goals within your organization, right? So goal setting, I think, is interesting, right? Because I think you have two different levels of goals. You have your team's goals, their individual goals, like what do I want to do as a career professional? And then you have organizational goals. And at the end of the day, you as a leader have to do what's best for the business, but you have to find a way to align those individual goals in play. And so, I think having really effective goal setting sessions with your team on a frequent basis. I hate the yearly employee engagement and review process. I think it's absolutely awful. If you're doing that in your organization, please do that more often than that. Please, 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 please. And if you're not sure how to do that, message me. Let's talk about it. Let's implement a plan for your organization. But a little self-promotion there. The next piece is once you set those goals in play, you have to empower people to go after them, right? So you can't just simply say, okay, your goal is to be in a leadership position in the next year. You now have to give them the tool to go there, right? So it's the
exactly.
It's
so many companies will
project, things like that. So
exactly, so many companies will take a look at that goal. And be like, okay, well, I guess we'll see where you're at next year. And then, if you earned it that way or not. And that, for me, the company culture I build, it was interesting. You made the point of at the end of the day, you have to be willing to do what's best for the company. In the groups and the culture that I build in them, because I obviously very much align with my culture. I don't build groups that don't. We talked about that a little bit before about how you can have someone else kind of build the culture if you want this type of culture, but you don't align with it yourself personally. I find that to be a bad formula right from the get-go, but it can be done if you do it right. Regardless, the culture I build is very much one of actually caring about my employees' lives, actually wanting them to get where their goals are. Michelle Falcone is actually one of the very few people I've met that really align with that and are true with that, to the point where he will help his middle and his lower and middle management rise to where they want to go, so that they can leave his organization and go do what they really want to be doing. And so I find that extremely important. Sometimes doing what's wrong for the company in the short term is what's right for it in the mid and the long term. So I might make moves or make expenses that seem foolish in the short term in order to maintain that culture and show my team and my group that this really is the way things are. We really do care about you. I'm not only making mentors or training tools or things available to people that I like or that are hitting the top of my sales. The guy who's selling the most in my department already is doing a good job. He already has tools and stuff. Who needs help is the people who are kind of riding that middle line, or who needs help and or redirection are the people who are kind of like riding that lower line. Either they're in the wrong spot or they don't have the tools. Like nobody wants, I promise you, nobody wants to go into a place every single day and be mediocre or less than mediocre every day. Nobody likes that. It's not a good feeling. So either they're in the wrong spot or they don't have the tools to do better. So you need to figure out which one of those is going on.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. I think it's really interesting that you point out that midpoint, right? The middle people, because so often we spend time giving kudos to the top and reprimand to the bottom, and that everybody else that's just kind of doing okay and floating along isn't getting any attention. And so I think that's I think that's a good call out. I want to pause for a second because Cherie, I got you. I saw your question. So Cherie wants to know: would you hire a person with a mediocre talent who has less idea of sales, but good behavior, less profit, or a person with high talent, good sales record, but a bad attitude, behavior, high profit person?
That is a wonderful question, and it aligns with just what we were talking about a moment ago, where perhaps making a decision that seems foolish in the short term actually pays out in the mid and the long term. So let's say in the short term, I'm a startup, or I'm just building my team and I'm looking to get to the next level, and I have the opportunity to hire some talent that's been in the industry maybe even longer than my business has, and they have the ability to kind of come in and up our sales or up our abilities right away. But they don't align with the culture. Maybe they're really cocky and they're kind of spreading that to the rest of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would very much hire a mediocre talent that either doesn't have the experience and therefore doesn't have those mental blocks about what is possible, what isn't possible, how things are done, and I can train them the way I want things done. And so you kind of have that peer slate, which that person you can build loyalty and commitment into and invest in them, and they're going to be willing to invest in you and to dig deep and kind of stay with your company longer. Where this quote shining star that's going to come in with his high sales and lead your pack and show you how things are done, that's not what you want. Good Lord, don't hire talent that comes in with the attitude that they're going to show you how this is done. Because if you know so well, you need to go over there and start your own company.
Yep.
It's very easy to lose control of your culture and your company as a startup if you're starting there. So in answer to your question, Sherrod, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm so terrible at that. But in answer to your question, yes, I will absolutely take a mediocre or mid-level talent that I can train and make better over someone who's already coming in as a rock star and has a bad attitude to spread to the rest of my team, or has the attitude that they know best.
Yeah. No, I wholeheartely agree with you. I want to take a second to talk about the ROI of that, the return on investment of that too, right? Because culture is one of those things I think is really hard to talk about the dollars and cents that align with it. But in this case, there's some clear advantages to hiring that mid-level talent, especially if you're a startup, right? At the end of the day, and this isn't to discount somebody's talent, abilities, or what they're worth, but at the end of the day, I can hire mid-level talent for 20 or 30% cheaper than I'm going to hire that top tier talent. What does that mean for me as an organization? That means that maybe I can hire 2 of those people instead of just one person and get double the production, right? It also means that maybe I can run 30% leaner right now, where money is really, really important, train that person and give them an aggressive reason to want to upskill themselves, such as bonuses, pay increases, things like that down the road, laying that path out for them. So I think it's important to mention that here, that there is an ROI and some cost things that as a business you need to make some decisions around. Is it important for me to pay a top tier person right now? Or can I survive on a mid-tier person for a little bit less money out of my pocket to essentially accomplish the same thing? So,
Yep, I absolutely agree, and I love that you brought up the tangible ROI, because it is very tangible right in the beginning in the ways that you mentioned, and there's also that intangible ROI that's much harder to define, and that's what we were talking before about. If you've taken someone from a mid-level tier on like a 1 to 10 scale, they're rocking a 4 to a 6, and you're helping them level up and hone their skills and get better at a position that they honestly want to be in, or to get the skills that they need to hold the position that they actually want to be in. They become beholden to you, and you have that cohesion and that collectiveness, and you build that loyalty. And a lot of people kind of find that as fake words these days, because so many companies and corporations don't return that loyalty. So it's very much a two-way street. If you show investment in them without necessarily worrying about the ROI, but you show that you actually care about how their daily life is going and them reaching their goals, they see that. It's very, very easy to see that as a person and see through bullshit when people are faking that. So if you're just real and you're genuine about it, like if that's not who you are, if that's not who your culture is, if you really have that mindset about I'm looking for the top talent, I'm looking for the highest ROI, immediate ROI, I want to see my sales up. That's fine. You won't be working in one of my companies. Like we won't be aligned or a partnership in companies, but that's totally fine for your company. Portray that and say, this is Shark Tank. This is what we're looking for. You can absolutely embrace that and be successful, but don't walk around pretending that you're what you're not. Be what you are and embrace that. Be like, hey, we're the Shark Tank. If you come here, you're going to be in direct competition with your team. We're not here to be friends with each other. We're not here to help each other level up. We are here to get the highest number at the end of the day, period. And some people really shine in that kind of culture. They love walking into that corporate, I call it the corporate competitive mindset. And some people love having that. Like they need that opposition to feel their drive and to really perform at their highest. So don't worry about, I have to have my culture this way so I can bring in top talent. No, you don't. You can absolutely be who you are as a company and still get talent that's going to align with that, no matter where you choose to be.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's interesting. There are a lot of bullpen, I call them bullpen companies, right? So they run like like the bullpen. It's just hard and fast and do whatever you got to do to get the job done, and we don't care. And that is totally okay. There are thousands upon thousands of people that are living in that world. Not a world I like to live in. I like to be more thoughtful around the way I approach things. That's my analytical nature. But I think you hit on a key point there that's really interesting, is genuine, right? And so I talk about this with empathy, right? Because empathy, I think, is the easiest way to understand what genuine truly is. Because when you're walking around, you're at the office, right? And somebody that you don't work with, you hardly know them, you know them from across the room type person, right? Maybe had a passing conversation in the hallway, but that's about it. They're significant, like a family member passes away, pet passes away, and you hear about it, right? It is important I think, to provide empathy in that situation. But on the same token, if I go out of my way for a person that I never, ever, ever talk to provide that empathy, and I don't have that personal connection with them, more than likely it's going to come off as just this very ingenuine, like I'm just going through the motions because I know it's the right thing to do, right? And that doesn't help anybody, right?
No.
We've all been in that situation. We've all experienced that situation at some point in time in our life. It's the very hollow, I'm so sorry for your loss, and you're like, yeah, whatever Bobby from sales that I've never talked to.
Right, exactly.
Right. You don't care about me. Like in that case, like I'm the chronic, like I'll sign the card, right? That is what in my mind seems appropriate in that situation. But on the same token, that same situation with somebody that's directly on your team, right? You're a lot more connected to that person. Dare to say you might even be, friends with that person, on a more personal level. When you show that empathy, I'm so sorry for your loss, it comes off so much more genuine, and people see it. And so, I think it's important to mention that just what the difference between genuine versus ingenuine is in ways that people can understand. So,
Absolutely. And I think in both of those scenarios is the ability to show, like, let's say Bob is across the office and Bob loses a family member. You never talk to Bob, but for whatever reason, you do kind of feel that genuine, you want to be there for Bob. Like maybe his situation is a situation you were in a few years ago. And so now you've kind of built that connection with Bob. In your mind, Bob has no idea. You're still just some jackass who sits across the office to Bob. And so you can have that conversation if you really want to build that foundation and let Bob know, hey, I've been there. So you can walk up and have, and again, as you said, it's that air of genuineness and what your actual goal is. People see right through you. Like a lot of people have a very small opinion of other people in their life and what they know and what they can see. And the truth is, the average person can see right through bullshit. They can see right through. So if you walk up to Bob and go, hey Bob, like I know we don't really have that kind of relationship, but I heard that you were in this spot in your life. I was there myself like 4 or 5 years ago, and I just want you to know that if you need to talk about that or if you want to hear what my experience was, then I'm more than happy to share my time with you. And leave it at that and walk away. Continue to impress yourself. Then, if Bob wants to come and talk to you about that, he'll know that you're genuine. Like you're not trying to get something out of him. You're not trying to, any of that other bull crap. You just letting Bob know, hey, I was in that spot. I know it's a rough place. If you do want to talk and start to build that kind of bond, then I'm here. If obviously we already have that in place with other people, then I'm probably not the person you're going to come to. But if you don't have that in your life, I am willing to do that for you now.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I appreciate that. We are getting to time. We are actually over what I normally run. So y'all got some bonus minutes today. So let's get your final thoughts in thinking about culture and building culture in this digital age. What is that one piece of advice, that one thing that everybody should walk away from our discussion today to go build their own culture?
Ooh, man, that's a tough one. It's really not. It's a tough one because I wanted to mention something else. But the answer to that question is absolutely 100%, without a doubt or equivacy, consistency in your culture with everybody. If it's your best friend, if it's someone that's been at your company for 20 years, if it's your top star talent and they're acting outside of the culture that you're looking to maintain, consistency, rein them right back in, put them in the same consequences that you would anybody else. And it's very, very, very important that your other employees and your other team members see that culture is important here. And if you step out of line from it, no matter who you are, then we're going to have to begin to take these steps. And if you consistently step out of line from the culture and consistently spread that anti-culture, because, we don't want to call it bad apples because it's not that necessarily all the time, although it is most often like someone who's going to be anti to your culture. So if you consistently do that, regardless of how long you've been here, regardless of what your performance numbers are, then we're going to have to explore options for you not to be here anymore if we cannot rein you back into the company culture that we've established. You've established your culture for a reason, and it's very, very important that you maintain that and be consistent.
Nope, I love it. That is great final thoughts. So let's talk about, because you got like tons and tons and tons of stuff going on, and I want to give you a chance to plug all your projects and stuff. So, because I appreciate you, man. So let's start off with where can people find Matthew Perkins?
These days, probably running around in circles, ripping his hair out. That's we don't have any left. I'm definitely on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. I absolutely love it. Please connect with me here. You will not find me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. You will find Infinity Streamers on all of those platforms. So go ahead, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. One of the really cool things we have going on, again, I mentioned we have our soft launch for Infinity Streamers is Friday. Saturday, we have a comedy show going on a really cool new platform we've been using called Remo. And it's where I host our home office, our virtual home office. It's been very, very helpful in building the culture that I'm looking to build with this group that we're making tonight. And so one of the cool things we're doing there is we're having a comedy night with Adam Leong, Rob Ryan, Dave Jenkins, all these kind of cool comedians. So I will, if it's all right, go ahead and drop the link down in the comments. Wonderful. Thank you. And so I'll drop the link down in the comments. And if y'all would like to come in, and we're calling it the Shut-In Laugh Out Comedy Night, please come on down and just have a bunch of laughs with us. I'm going to be there on the tables. I'm pretty sure Adam's going to be there. So you can kind of network with us after the show if you'd like. The platform's very well built for that. And you can come out and kind of talk one-on-one or one-on-four with the comedians and the performers. So it's going to be a wonderful night. Please do come out and join us, and I look forward to seeing you all there.
So awesome. Well, we definitely appreciate that. Want to give some love to the audience before we sign off here. So thank you, Lee Rowley, Chris Nesbitt, and let's see. I think those are all Sid is there too. So thank you guys for coming to watch us. As always, if you love what you see here and you want to see more of it, I got to get this down bottom corner there. Just below Matt is my Patreon link. Please help me support the show. Yes. It helps me out immensely. This is not a free price tag for us. We do have some expenses with software and things. So it helps us run these shows so we can provide the information to you. And I know that's going to be part of the Infinity Streamer stuff too. So you can go support your other shows that you love to see as well. So patreon.com/Adam Sinkus. Support me. Let me know you're showing some love. I appreciate everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon. It was so much fun coming to you live from the Millennium Falcon today with Matthew Perkins. I appreciate everybody. Have a wonderful day.